And we're back here for another episode of the Peter Kalos podcast. Peter is shaking his head like he knows what's going on. No clue at all. We've had a little bit of a hiatus again. I've been in New York. Pete, you've been doing the acting school, and I'm sure that is going great. Dennis, you are obviously in a lot in New York, which is beautiful.
Yeah, for those listening on the audio-only podcast and not watching, it's a virtual background of a beautiful New York loft apartment. I'm just manifesting where I'm going to be.
I want to move in. It looks awesome.
It looks good. If you didn't tell us, we wouldn't have known. Pete, what have you been up to? How are things?
I've actually, apart from teaching at the lab, I got involved in this project, and it's a theater piece, and it's called Borte. It's about Genghis Khan's wife, and they're flying me to Kazakhstan.
This isn't a joke, is it? This is real, yeah?
No. This guy's going to Kazakhstan to direct some weird epic theater play.
Not only that, instead of Borte, I keep calling it Borat, which really pisses them off, right? Because we're having these Zoom meetings and the Minister of Culture is over there and all these people and this poor 80,000-year-old guy who's directing it, who wrote the piece, doesn't speak a word of English, and I keep saying Borat.
Yeah, because I'm sure they love the representation of Kazakhstan in Borat.
Of course.
All over it.
And I'm not saying it's a nightmare, but it's you know what? It's too fast, too soon. They want everything done in a couple of months. And I said, this is a couple of years worth of project, not a couple of months. And my fault is I didn't say a clean no at the beginning. So I kind of went, this doesn't work and we don't have an actor and this. So 3 weeks later, I had no choice because I said to the guy, right now, it's been 3 weeks later and you're 3 weeks short and I have to say yes.
So but I think you've refocused it in a positive fashion. I think you've reset parameters so that something can be achievable.
Yeah,
like a couple of big monologues and some music,
correct.
But not the full production within
We're not doing
a month.
We're taking the leads, the Borte and the Genghis Khan characters, and they're doing big speeches, and there'll be an orchestra singing behind, so they'll narrate the scene. You know what I'm saying? And finding Genghis Khan is a tough one. Luke, you wanna go to Kazakhstan with me?
I can see it.
Yeah, I just came back from New York. I'd love to go to Kazakhstan.
I can see it.
Get your passport.
Yeah, you just got to get me a wig. I've already got the beard going down. I'm already as promiscuous as Genghis Khan. So
yeah.
I'm already living the role. Really, I'm already living the role.
Exactly.
So Pete, when are you going to be in Kazakhstan? Is there a chance that we could record a podcast whilst you're in Kazakhstan?
From Kazakhstan.
That would be awesome.
We should do a podcast and a live feed. We'll do a period of live from Kazakhstan.
I'm sure they gave me their dates. I don't have a clue, but I know they gave me their dates.
Late October. That's as
perfect.
much as you narrowed it down when you told me.
There we go. Sometime
mid to late October.
Right?
Well, you have to keep us updated with that. We would love to hear a little bit more. I don't know about you, Dennis, but I'm being very selfish here. I would love to hear a little bit more about that project because it sounds like it's going to be wild.
We'll say it as we go. I should start filming the Borat adventure. You know what I'm saying, and do it like because it's going to be.
It's talking about Borat.
Yes. Did I just say Borat?
Yes.
Oh my god! It was so much trouble. So a big part of the reason why doing it was whatever money I'll get paid, I'll break even because I got to cancel classes and not work basically. But I thought I'm never ever going to go buy a ticket to go to Kazakhstan. Right? I'm never going to do that. So I thought, okay, they're giving me a ticket. They'll put me in a nice hotel room, and I'll turn up and go, wow, here I am.
Well, I think that you're going to have a ball. I think you're going to come back with plenty of stories.
Yeah.
So mark those stories. Make sure you keep them for the podcast, and we would love to hear it. Dennis, what have you been? Oh, you wait. Go back to Pete. Go, Pete.
One of two things will happen. Either I won't record because I'll forget, or my phone will be on in my back pocket, and that's what you'll end up seeing, which is most likely the second one will happen.
Yeah. So Pete, you've never heard of the theory of manifestation, have you? If you tell yourselves those negative stories, that's what you're manifesting.
I think it's brilliant. I've heard of it, but people tell me.
You're a classic, Pete. You're a classic. That's why I love you. Dennis,
Yeah.
what have you been doing?
Buying an apartment in New York. Look at him.
Besides living the high life and living next to Jennifer Lawrence.
Just the usual kind of bread and butter work, lots of kids entertainment, lots of
Sydney, aren't you, tomorrow?
no, next Friday, heading to Sydney for Alice in Wonderland with the Australian Shakespeare Company. A lot of the corporate training, kind of acting, training people, and they use actors to act out scenes. Which when I started felt kind of very dry and like, are people going to respond to this? But actually, people are used to doing training with like PowerPoints and slides and not having any of that, just a facilitator, actors and discussion. People actually really, really respond well to it. So I've been doing a fair bit of that. I've been booked when I get back from Sydney to do a beautiful monologue in Geelong. The work of Margaret Hickey, who lives up in northern Victoria.
You're going to come and say hi. I'm in Torquay.
Yes. Yeah.
You can even come and stay down in Torquay if you want.
Oh, look, they're putting us up in this beautiful house right on the waterfront.
Awesome. I'll come and stay with you then.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, why take your shithole? We'll all turn up in Dennis.
But she's a beautiful writer. She's pivoted from being an award-winning playwright to a crime fiction novelist. She's got some great novels out, one called Cutter's End and the second one called Stone Town, which are like outback noir type.
Where are you doing this?
I'm doing it in Geelong in October. And so several years ago, I did the Millwall Monologues, which was a show of Marg's monologues. So 5 actors went down and they converted an old shearing shed, I think it was, or it might have been something else, but it was a rural kind of building that got converted into a theatre space. There was 5 of us who each did a monologue. It was called Bloke, so it was about country blokes. And I did a monologue called Coach, which is a beautiful monologue about a guy who's obsessed with football and he coaches the local kids footy team, and he's got a son and he can't wait to get his son into footy, but his son's autistic. And can't stand the feel of the ball, doesn't like the contact with people. But during the monologue, there's a game that's going on and he's talking to someone next to him. And so his son like has a photographic, like he can replay afterwards the game, like pass to pass, like every instant. He knows all the stats of every player. And he's kind of the record keeper of the team. So it's about a father getting to enjoy his passion for football in a different way to what he expected. It's really beautiful. And it's kind of like it's a weekend that's a kind of a workshop weekend around the works of Margaret Hickey. So they're just booking me to come on the Sunday afternoon and do the monologue.
Where will it be? Where in Geelong?
It's at this big house. The house that I'm staying at is where it's at.
Wow.
It's not a public. It's for the participants of this weekend.
Right.
Yeah, so that's I'd really love to revisit that monologue. She's a wonderful writer. I did another one about 2 years ago. It was scenes, 2-person scenes, and it was at the local winery up there, which is a big name winery that I can't remember. But they converted this big old shed into a beautiful, beautiful theatre space, and we did a couple of nights up there with like Michael Veitch and lots of other wonderful actors. So yeah, that's what I'm looking forward to at the moment. But at the moment, just planning to head to Sydney next week and play with the kids.
So have you found that, post-COVID now, have you found, Dennis, that things are sort of getting back into the motion that were before COVID? Do you think that we're sort of back there in Melbourne?
I think there's
Australia
a couple
in general.
I think there's a couple of different streams in the really sort of commercial TV industry. It's definitely shrunk. People who were kind of higher up on the feeding chain are taking jobs lower down from what they would have taken pre-COVID. And so that squeezes everyone out. So everyone's under the squeeze. The kind of, a lot of the work I do, that's sort of lot of theatre jobs, Australian Shakespeare Company. I've been absolutely flat knackered. I've been the busiest I've ever been, probably. I had to
Good.
turn down another theatre show because I just couldn't put in the rehearsal time. A really beautiful play going up in probably November, but I just
What's
uh,
that play?
um oh, oh you put me on the spot now. I think it was going to be on a meat market,
Right.
and the actual company in the play escapes my mind. But I had to. It's a beautiful, beautiful play I'd love to do, and I had to turn it down because I just thought I can't put in the rehearsal work. I'm too booked up between now and then. So
That's
at
great to
that
hear,
level,
Dennis.
I'm absolutely flat knackered. So and I think that's something to keep in mind. Create your own work, build networks wherever you're at, find opportunities to perform, and find your niche, and don't put your eggs in one basket. Just find lots of little niches, and and you can find the work and you can generate the work. But definitely on the bigger level, things have contracted. It's very tough.
Well, that leads into our topic of today, which is all about. Let me get. I hope I get this right. Being prepared, is that the topic that we?
Being prepared.
Yes.
Here's what I find. I always tell people it's different if you're an athlete and you're doing the Olympics, 4 years from now, and then 3.5 years from now, you're doing the Olympics in 6 months. With acting, you get a phone call and they say, great, go now. 2 days audition, and then 3 days or 5 days down the road, you got the job. And people are like, you know, in shock, and they don't have anything ready. They don't have their schedule ready. They don't have apart from the technical basic stuff, like, hey, your showreel and your resume and all that stuff, they don't have their life ready to go if they get a job. They completely fall apart. And I know sometimes it costs people work. Do you know what I'm saying? And sometimes it's like, hey, this is part of being a professional. You have to be ready. You have to have everything ready to go. You know what I'm saying? Including your schedule to move. You know what I'm saying? It's like asking someone, like even with this, the play I'm doing, asking actors, give me a headshot. It's like, a week later you go and they send you something, you go, that's not a freaking headshot. Or they're always waiting on something. And I'm like, no, these things have to be ready. You got to be ready mentally. You got to be ready with all your assets ready to go. And your life has to be ready. You know what I'm saying? Right? Meaning be ready to drop everything in that moment so you function as a professional. You know what I'm saying? That's really hard to understand and to get your head around it.
Yeah, I think that's an important point. That's the hardest thing is I book up all these little gigs all over the place because I've got to make money. And then if you get something big, you've got to move them all.
Yeah.
But it's just a reality of life. I mean, that's the big benefit of really being in that big game. You're not doing all that other stuff that you've got to shift. But yeah, it's a real, you've always got to have it in mind. What happens if I get something? I'm going to have to get out of all of this other stuff.
All this other stuff. And I think what people can do to help themselves is have all these things ready so that when it does happen, it's like having an emergency pack just in case something happens. You know what I'm saying? So these things are ready to go because you don't want to give like a sense of mistrust from a director, because a lot of directors or producers would go, you know what? They don't have their shit together. Let's go with someone else. You know what I'm saying?
Okay,
Right?
well, let's be specific. What's in that pack? Just on a functional level,
Look,
what do you need ready to go in that folder on your computer to send at an instance notice? What do you need?
the two or three obvious things that must be there, all right, are obviously your headshot, your showreel, your IMDb page has to be completely upgraded, all right? All that stuff has to be upgraded constantly, all right? Your information and your package that sells you has to be constantly upgraded, constantly looked at. You know what I'm saying? And every time you make a schedule with something, everything, right? You have to say, yes, I'm doing this. However, if for whatever reason I get a gig, I will, don't get upset or whatever if I have to cancel that moment, right? And you have to say that's part of my job. You know what I'm saying? I'll come to your party. I'll come to your birthday party. I'll come to this camping trip. But if I get a gig, I must dump everything. So there's no shock to these people, because then people go back and forth, and you go, wait a minute. They have that mentality in LA because they do this all the time. And everyone's an actor there. So people just know if you cancel something in the last minute, there's no issue. You know what I'm saying? As opposed to people coming back and forth going, oh, but I got this and I got that and I got, even your day job, unfortunately, you have to let them know. And I know people say, well, I can't tell them. I go, no, you're better off telling them, listen, I'm an actor. And if I get this gig, I might have to put everything on pause. You know what I'm saying? You don't have to quit your day job. You can negotiate with them, you know?
And that's a reality that most actors do know, that you drop everything at the, whenever you need to do any sort of project that, you feel like is fulfilling you on the inside, or, is a big role that gives you a wider audience, or, a good check. And it is still amazing how many people who are non-actors, including families, including partners, who don't understand that part. I was recently talking to a friend in New York who was sharing details about not being able to go to weddings or births of siblings, kids, because they couldn't leave the country because they needed to keep their visa, and how it caused a little bit of a rift. And it is still amazing how even family members don't understand. I know that my family didn't understand when I was working full time, that I wasn't able to get to parties, or even in some sort of circumstances where I couldn't fork out, $200 or $300 to be in, to be in a pool for a gift or something like that, because I wasn't working that much at the
Right.
time. So it's important that, as an actor, that you try and keep your character within yourself, and understand that that is part of the job, and you're not being a bad person,
Right.
and you're not letting people down, but this is just the journey that you're on.
And and and
And
and look what happens also, just so you know, like in LA, everyone knows this because it's a
mm,
film town. Everyone knows you're an actor. So when you do turn up to your day job and go, guys, you know what I'm saying, I've got this, they really negotiate with you, because they'd
mm,
rather you go there for a few weeks and then come back in a few weeks and go, hey, he's one of ours. You know what I'm saying? It's a film town, so they just assume that everyone's an actor. Everyone will go for an audition. Everyone will do that. That's LA. You know what I'm saying? Here in Melbourne, not so much so. All right. I think some people do it out of novelty. Oh, he's got an audition. Great. Right. But it's also being ready within yourself. One other thing that I didn't mention, which is paramount, I can't stress this enough. When they cast the latest Mad Max, the audition was do a monologue. And everyone started calling me saying, hey, I got to do this monologue for this audition. And I'm like, you don't have a monologue ready that
mm.
you've been working on for a year or 2 years, and at least 2 or 3 monologues, different types of monologues that show who you are. And these things need to be ready, fully fermented, because if you've got one that's ready, and then someone else just called me and said, hey, I got to do this monologue, I've got 4 days, you're way ahead of the pack. And they will never know if you've worked on it for a year or you've worked on it for a day. They're going to go, wow, this is amazing. You know what I'm saying? And you can't just have one. I always tell people, when you watch American Idol and Simon says to someone, stop that song, do something else. If that person never had another song, they'd be off the stage right away. So it's not just enough to have one monologue. You need to have 2 or 3 that you've constantly worked on, constantly ready. So if you do go to an audition and the director says, you know what, let's try something else, show me a monologue, you're not going to go, That's not being ready. You know what I'm saying? These things have to be fully loaded, ready to go. And it just takes a lot of work and consistency. You know what I'm saying?
Mm.
And that's something that you normally, when you're at an acting school, a good one, that's not just working on a scene and filming it. You're going through the process of building your technique and your craft from the inside out. I always fell on using the monologue that I would use in sensory. I don't know about you, Dennis, but every time they asked me to do a monologue, I already had the monologue there because, I've been at the lab or I've been working on that monologue through sensory and through, what's the other one, Pete? There's sensory and the other
Relaxation.
one that we do to warm up.
Relaxation.
Yeah, relaxation. Yeah,
Yeah.
No, character and also character work as well.
Character work. Yeah,
Yeah,
character.
exactly.
Yeah.
So that's already there, and to have that already just in the back pocket without even trying or working on it, because you're just working on it every day or every week, it's very, very valuable. It's very, very valuable.
And you're ready to go. It's there. You just have something to give to them. If you have nothing to give to them, you know what I'm saying? Then they look at you like, I can't rely on this person. I dropped the ball. You know what I'm saying?
So if we're
And it's work, by the way. It's work to
Mm.
sustain all these things. It's work to have everything ready, up to date, up to date, up to date. You know what I'm saying?
So the sort of rule there is every time that you either accepted for a role, or you finish filming something, or you finish a theatre production, put it in your resume, put it in IMDb straight away.
Yep.
Straight away. How often do you think an actor should get headshots?
Well, look, depends on what you look like. First of all, if you haven't changed much, and you could get away with 1 or 2 years, maybe. You know what I'm saying? Now, look, if you're 16 and 2 years later you're 18, that won't work. You know what I'm saying? All right, because you've changed a lot. You know what I'm saying? So in that case, every year, right? If you have a massive hairdo and you cut your hair short, exactly, change it. If you're in your mid 50s like I am, yeah, you can have one from 5 years ago. It's okay. It will pass. You know what I'm saying? Right? But you just got to be honest to yourself and go, does this still look like me? Also, let's assume you've got one and you've been sending it out to casting agents. I mean, change. So they go, wow, look, here's a new one, just to give them something new to look at. Otherwise, they just go, yep, seen this. You know what I'm saying? But it's got to be better or something different about that one. You know what I'm saying? So it's very good to upgrade. You know what I'm saying? By the way, one other thing, we should make a list about this. If anyone's listening, make a list, send it to us. All right? Passports, massive. Have to be ready. Right? You don't know, especially now, it's a nightmare to get one. I ordered mine 6 months ago. I just haven't bothered to go get it. Right? It's ready. It's ready. But the point is this: you gotta have these things ready because you will lose work. They can't hire you. And the other thing, whether you agree with it or not, is a whole different discussion. Is you must be up to date with your vaccinations. That's not a choice anymore. They say that must be up to date with your vaccinations. You know what I'm saying? All right.
Yeah, even going overseas, you need to show your vaccinations. You need to show your certificate. You have to print it out and you have to show them when at least when you're entering the States. It's probably the same if you're going to the UK or any other region. I don't know what it's going to be like in Kazakhstan, but you're going to need your passport to go to Kazakhstan. You did realize that, didn't you?
Yeah, I've got it all. I'll just show them all the green growths on my back. I'll say, look, I took the shot. Here it is.
There you go.
But also, even when you go for auditions, they say, please be fully vaccinated. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So that has to be done. Your passport has to be done. There should be nothing stopping you from moving forward.
Let me give you an example. Just say you're an actor and you've just came out of COVID or just like we are, and you haven't filmed anything in a long time. You haven't been cast in anything for a long time. Do you think you should be putting your own mini production together with something new to show casting agents, or even just to get your reel to be a little bit thicker?
Yes, I say yes, and it freshens it up. And also, look, they don't want you to go, hey, how are you? Here's a Christmas card, Merry Christmas, just checking in. They don't want that shit. What they want is to go, wow, look at this new thing that someone's put on their show reel. You know what I'm saying? And if it's that good, someone will say, wow, have you seen this clip? You know what I'm saying?
It doesn't need to be on your show reel. It's like on casting networks, you can upload media.
Exactly.
And there's casting media that's like self-tests. So if you've got an amazing something you want to share, just upload it, just make up a fake project and say self-test for this. And then your agent's got something to show. Like upload it like it was a self-test. It's a self-test for yourself. You don't have to have an actual project. And then there's something new to share.
And by the way, also one other thing to do is to update your agent to say, hey man, here's my schedule. This is when I'm not available. This, right?
Unless you've got my agent, he'll never remember.
We're here. Right?
My agent's going to Kazakhstan.
This is a true story. I was in the room when this happened. All right. I went to Barry Primus's agent. This was in LA. And we walk in and the agent was on the phone. I won't say the actor's last name, right? So the agent goes, I got an amazing actor, amazing for this project. Harry, blah, blah. And Barry and I walk in and Barry goes to the agent, hey, Harry died 2 weeks ago, all right? And the agent just goes, oh, he's unavailable, but I got this other great actor. Barry's like, he died 2 weeks ago, what's wrong with you? The actual wording was, Harry's unavailable right now, but I got another great actor for the project.
I'm putting that on my headstone. I'm unavailable right now, but keep me in mind.
Yeah, keep in mind for projects. You know what I'm saying? All right. But look, just like, a couple of weeks ago, there was 2 actors, and one said to me, "Oh, Peter, I'm taking a year off acting. Great." And the other one said, I can't do it for the next 6 months. I'm like, why don't you tell us these things? It's constantly upgrading your entire team and yourself and all the tools that need to be ready to go. You know what I'm saying? All right. It changes the game completely for you, and if they smell anything that could hesitate the project, they'll just go, can we get someone else before we commit? Be a professional. I know there's certain actors, I email them, Dennis is one of them. I could call, he'll give me everything I want. You know what I'm saying? All right. No issue there. All right. There's others and you get bits and pieces, right? By the way, I'm a bits and pieces person, right? Sadly, but it's true.
Right? And as well as your CV, often you're asked for a bio, and they're the hardest thing to write. So have one ready, have a generic bio ready, kind of work on it when you're not under pressure. And then you can always change it to adjust it for the project you're on. But especially for theatre, they're often going to ask you for a bio. So have one ready to go.
And what you could do is tailor them. I've got one for directing. I've got one for acting. I've got one for writing. So you kind of do that. They don't want to read 10 pages about your life. They just want, if you're a theater actor, say, here's my theater stuff. If you're doing film, here's my film one. You know what I'm saying? Right? So it's 80% about film and 20% theater and the other way around. So you can tailor them. Same as headshots. Don't just give me one headshot. You go one for this, one for that, one for this. Do you know what I'm saying? All right? So that's all just taking care of business. I mean, you really need to understand that it's a business and all these things have to be available to you. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
Exactly.
Well, if
So
that's all... Yep.
I actually have one more question for both of you. So we've touched on the admin side of it and we've touched on the craft. What are your thoughts about accents? Should you always be working on accents as well? Should you always have those ready? Yes. I know personally, my American accent fucking sucks.
After 2 weeks in New York?
Yeah, still after 2 weeks in New York, it still sucks. But Dennis, how do you keep up? Do you have a voice coach? Do you set aside time? Because I'm sure that you are auditioning for roles where they're calling for accents.
Yeah, not so much. I don't have someone. If I had a really massive project, I would get some coaching for sure. And it kind of depends on what you want to do as well. Because often, especially in class stuff, people do accents. I feel too much. My rule of thumb is do an accent if you absolutely have to. If there's any way you cannot do it, don't do an accent, because it's just another thing that's getting in the way of your acting. And sometimes the accent, it becomes a substitute for the acting. And the character is the accent, and the character's got to be more than that. So my rule of thumb is, if you can get away with not doing an accent, don't do an accent. I'd rather do stuff personally. If I get an audition for something American, I'll work on an American accent. I would much rather go for something that's in my natural accent, and not worry about it. But yeah, I don't know that I'm a natural with accents. I can get there, but yeah, it takes a lot of work, and
I think you're very good, Dennis.
Yeah, go on, Dennis.
I've seen you in class, how you transform, and it's pretty impressive.
It's very, Dennis. Your accent is very reliable. You know what I'm saying?
But it depends on the project, and like, for instance, I had to get a lot of coaching for Antigone in New York because that was Russian. And I had been doing Polish, which kind of makes it even harder because they're similar. Like, so
You should have just hung out with Albert Goikman. He would have told you.
I did get, yeah, but again, it was American.
Right.
It was it's not you don't want to end up with an Australian Russian accent when it's set in a very specific place in Tompkins Square Park in New York.
Right.
You don't want to be having an Australian Russian accent. So,
by the way, on that point, sorry to cut you off really quickly. I do agree with Dennis that if the project is absolutely mandatory, like if it's Italian American reconciliation, we want to hear Italian American. You know what I'm saying? Zoo Story can be done without an accent in theory. You know what I'm saying? Right? Right? Many plays can be done without it, right? But if it must be there, yes, it must be there. The other thing I find that's interesting is when people audition and I must do an American accent, it actually helps if the person reading with you, if you're Australian and you're trying to do an American accent, make sure you get someone that's got a good American accent to talk back to you. Because I find what happens is you do your American accent, which is 80, 90% there, and then the Australian reader talks, and that makes the Australian sounds come out in you. You know what I'm saying? I actually find that a lot. Then they hear the Australian sounds in you. Where if you get an American person reading and you're trying to American, it actually helps with what they hear. Does that make sense? Right?
Yeah, it does.
By the way, the girl playing Borte, got it right, is pure Australian accent.
But see, I don't mind that. It depends on the project. Like, I really like. Did you see the series Chernobyl?
Which one?
Great series on Chernobyl. And they just use their natural accents. There was some sort of Russian accents. There was some British accents. I think there was just using their natural accents and just playing the character. And depends on the project. But I think in that show worked beautifully. It didn't bother me one bit. And I feel like it was better than them speaking, because anything you do is going to be an artifice. Like, because if you go to Russia, people don't speak Russian in an English accent. I don't speak English in a Russian accent. They speak Russian, and you're not speaking Russian. So anything you do is not going to be accurate. So if the project allows, just don't put on an accent. Often, if it's Russian or something,
but like
an accent is going to work better. I'm not saying in all cases, but if you can get away with it, don't do an accent.
Yeah, and accents is one of those things that you have to have ready.
Yeah. Well, this topic reminds me of when I was acting in the situation of having to balance out making money to pay rent, and then also being available for shows. There were so many times that I was in the situation that you're talking about, Pete, how I did not have my life ready, and I had a really good opportunity, and I just wasn't able to either go to the audition, or maybe I went to the audition and I was flaky because I had all this outside pressure. The best thing that you can do, from what you've said, Pete, is to try and get rid of that pressure, so you are ready for that moment in front of the camera, ready for that moment to audition.
And what happens also, because you've got all this other stuff taken care of, then you can truly focus on the acting and taking your work to another level. All that stuff's there. It's second nature. Do you know what I'm saying? All right?
Yes.
That's
and
all streamlined, right?
And it's not just a situation where you feel like you're cramming the night before.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or do you still feel that, Dennis, when you're sometimes going for auditions? Do you feel like you're cramming it all, or do you feel like you're just going through the process and this is another audition?
From time to time, it's I don't think it's ever the same. Sometimes it's bad when you feel like you're cramming. Often that's for corporate videos because they tend to be very, very overwritten and wordy. And you get them very late. I've had pages and pages of dense dialogue that I've gotten the afternoon or night before shooting. Um, that's cramming. But yeah, I think that's a great segue into. I see. I don't think we've really touched on how to be ready in the craft, and this is
Right.
a good way into it. But it's always different, and it's always bad to feel like you're cramming. But it's a reality. Sometimes you are. Ideally, even if you do feel like that, you cram before, and then you kind of let go of it as much as you can once you get in the room.
And by the way,
Um,
I see that when a lot of people come to me and say, Peter, I got this really big audition. We spent some time trying to get somewhere. And you can tell in that moment that we can spend another hour, it won't be ready.
mm,
You know what I'm saying? We've hit the plateau that's possible today. You know what I'm saying?
mm.
It's not like we've got 3 months to get into it. And I tell them, guys, this should be up here. It's here. And no matter what we do today, it's not going to get much better.
It's like whether it's classes or whether it's just doing stuff, just do it all the time. I remember back when the lab was in Brunswick, I was, for various reasons, I kind of accidentally ended up being there 4 nights a week. Because people doing show reels, I had a couple of scenes on a couple of nights, and other people had scenes that I'd either been the other character in, or you do improvs for other people, but then you end up creating a character that has to show up every week for their improvs. But I was there all the time. But that doing it all the time, like 4 nights a week and preparing stuff, it meant that when you go for an audition, it's just another thing. You do this scene here. Oh, you're going to jump up in this person's improv. Oh, you're going to do this. Doing it all the time gets you ready. It's like there's sometimes I watch, videos on YouTube or TikTok. You get videos of like tradies, like roofing plumbers, for example, that they don't have a machine. They've got these complex roof kind of angles and shit, and they do it by ear by eye with tin snips, and it
Yeah.
fits perfectly, and it's absolutely flush, and you know that motherfucker's not going to leak. But they didn't do that by getting up on a roof once every 4 months. It's all the time. So whether it's going to a class, whether it's coming to the lab, whether it's but do it all the time. Do it in your room. Find things to do. Improv with friends. Get in shows. Make sure. But there's something that's one benefit of training. Apart from the actual training, that it's getting stuff in your body, there's benefit from just doing it all the time consistently. Because then you're in the swing of doing it, and you go into that audition room, and it's just another time you're getting up that week of 10 times you're getting up that week.
We're kind of segueing into what we spoke about, the second topic, which we talked about. That category of pure acting skill and acting muscle is the one thing that is a constant discipline. You know what I'm saying? That's what builds actors. That's what separates, the one who turns up every now and then and does it, and the one that's there consistently. When they get that audition or when they get that role, they're ready. And then all they can focus on is fine-tuning their work, making amazing choices, where the one that's not ready is still trying to get in shape. And you see that a mile away. I mean, literally a mile away. That's why you all know, the first thing I tell people when you come to the lab is, show me a monologue, right? 50% of the people don't turn up next week. And I say, why didn't you turn up? Well, I'm still looking for a monologue. And I go, that's the point. And then the second lot that actually do turn up, they do a monologue, and I go, how much time have you spent on that? And they go, well, since you told me, a couple of hours. And I go, that's why we're here, because you don't have a monologue that's ready. You don't have a monologue that's going to show me what you're capable. I always tell people, it's like when you watch these cooking shows, like Gordon Ramsay goes to someone's restaurant and says, get me a meal. I don't want to know what you've studied as a chef. I don't want to know where you've worked. I want you to get me a meal, whatever you like right now. And that meal has to be amazing. You know what I'm saying? That's why I tell people, just show me a monologue. And it's not amazing for the most times, easily 99% of the time. And you go, yeah, because they don't do it, because they don't see the value of doing it. They don't see the value of fine-tuning a monologue at such a level that I don't even see the monologue. I see it like I'm seeing it for the very first time with a whole other vision and interpretation, and done well, where I go, oh my God, what was that? I don't even see the acting. You know what I'm saying? I just see a whole, and I go, wow, now let's talk. You know,
it's really noticeable when you're seeing things that, or reading things, or looking at any sort of art that friends of yours have done, because you go initially because they're friends, but the mark of the quality of it is when you forget that that's your friend. Like a good example is Nicole Shimoon in Troppo. I started watching Troppo because I don't watch a lot of TV, because Nicole Shimoon's in it. I very quickly forgot that that was someone I know, that was Nicole, and I'm just on the Amanda train, and it's just Amanda. Same with we talked about Margaret Hickey, her books. I bought both of her books, available from Penguin. They're not in your local bookstores. Order them in; they're very good. But I read them because I know Marg. I've done her shows, but I very, very quickly forgot that I know Marg, or that Marg wrote them at all. And I was just in the story. You know, that's the sign that it's, you know, that it's good.
It's funny because, like, with Nicole, by the third episode, I had caught myself, and I realized I wasn't watching Nicole now. I'm saying I was immersed in that character, right? And I was immersed in. I wasn't watching Nicole, going, "Okay, I'm watching it because of Nicole." She had won me over as character. You know what I'm saying? And when we did our plays, there was many times where I could sit through that play, not because I was directing it, but because I was enjoying the actual play. You know what I'm saying? And every time I saw it, I was watching it for the very first time, and I thought, "Yep, I'm enjoying the play. It's in the moment. It's ready. I'm not seeing Dennis on stage or whoever happens to be on stage." You know what I'm saying? That's a real high level of work to get to. You know what I'm saying? Right?
And
But that's the aim anyway. You know what I'm saying?
And it seems like from both the conversation that you gentlemen have been going on about, that you can only get there with time. You can only get there with giving time to developing that character, or giving time to even developing a character that's sort of close to that. Dennis, you've used examples in the past, I believe, where you were working on one character and then you sort of minutiaed that character for a play or a short film. Is that right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the Nathan Loves Ricky Martin.
Yeah.
That was something I'd been working on at the lab. It started as character work for, I was going to do a scene from Rain Man, which never happened, but I kept working on that character, which became very different from the Rain Man character.
Yeah.
But kept developing, and then became Nathan, and it was very different from Nathan, but it was a foot in the door. So, you know, use everything. And
just so you know, he had a lot of the basic ingredients, and he just has to fine tune some few things. And a lot of people don't know this. He actually turned up in character to the audition. He would not be able to do that if he hadn't immersed himself in it. You know what I'm saying? Right? Which is true, right? And then you can focus on the higher level of the work.
But the example I always come back to, because there's two, as I said, there's two strands. There's the training, and then there's just the doing of it constantly, which you can get in a class. But what the example I always come back to is stand-up comedy, because you're not doing training, you're just getting up. And I've seen it over years. Anyone who sticks with it gets good at stand-up. All you have to do is stick with it and keep trying. You might not be on national TV. You might always be a club comic, and it takes a long time to make any money as a comic. That's a hard road. But if you stick with it, I've seen people who they start out and you're like, this person is never going anywhere. It's embarrassing. It's cringy. They get good. If they stick with it, keep doing it, they get good. They can make money as a club comic, selling themselves to footy clubs, whatever venue they go to. They might not be world breaking, but they get good. It's hours. It's mic hours.
Yeah. And they make it, I think it's Paul Newman said, there's a lot of work behind these pretty blue eyes. Meaning, if you do it so well, people will not even notice the work.
They just notice the pretty blue eyes.
Exactly. We shouldn't even see the work. That's really the pinnacle of it all. Not
which is why everyone thinks they can do it.
exactly.
Because
Yeah,
because if it's done well, it doesn't look like you're doing anything.
yeah, yeah.
So
And
yeah, go
yep,
Dennis.
sorry, no, go on.
I was just going to say. So in terms of sort of preparation, have you gentlemen seen the Once Upon a Time in Hollywood? How Leonardo DiCaprio is getting ready for his scene, and so Dennis, he's getting ready for his scene, and he's recorded the other person's lines, and he's just left gaps in between.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Have you ever used that method? I used to do that when I first started, and then I did it, but it sort of took me back. Have you ever used that sort of method in terms of getting prepared for auditions?
I've never used that. I more know my lines as a monologue. So
Okay.
I'm just doing my lines, and then I'm trying to listen to what the other person's saying during theirs. Um, yeah, I mean, I've heard of that. I think it's probably useful, but it's not something I've ever done. No.
Because after that movie, I'm sure there's a worldwide actors
Slow of
who are now working in that sort of method.
Mm.
It's interesting, by the way, you've never done that, Dennis. That's interesting. You know what I'm saying? And I guess it forces you to listen to the other person, you know?
And also, the gaps are always even.
Yeah. And so,
So
so
like,
question then, how do you, when you're auditioning and the other person has their lines, do you listen to them in your head or do you just give a bit of a gap?
hopefully, I've got someone reading against me.
Oh, right. So you don't need to do that.
But
Right.
if I can't, I listen to them. I'll just leave a gap. I'll just leave a gap that's about long enough, and hopefully, I'm listening to them in my head. Yeah, exactly. I'm imagining someone's there saying it,
Right.
and then drop someone's voice in post. Sometimes my own.
Yeah, I've had to do that before too. Like
Mm,
I haven't been able to get anyone to read the lines, so you just leave the gap, and then you record it again, and then you put it over the top in
yeah,
post in iMovie.
yeah.
Yeah.
Odd little trick, but I don't think it ever sounds as good.
No, no, of course not.
It sounds
It's
weird, actually.
if you can ever get a reader, get a reader. You get
Always get
someone
a
to
reader.
do it with you, and ideally an actor that's going to work with you.
Yeah. And,
Um,
and
with,
like I said, and one that has the right accent for the gig also.
mm.
It really helps, you know?
It does help.
So,
Okay,
Pete,
gentlemen.
what do you think?
uh,
Just quickly, because I don't think we've really touched on. So what do you do? So you've done all the work. You're doing it consistently. You get a big audition for a week's time for tomorrow. What are the steps? What do you do?
Well, let's assume you had a week,
Mm,
right? And you've got, what, 10 pages?
yep.
Oh, 6 pages, right? I always tell people, read the script, right? Don't learn your lines right away if you have time. Because what happens is now I've learned the lines off the page. I always tell people if there was no lines, what would the character be doing?
Mm,
So then if the character is getting ready to go to work, get ready to go to work and then you can learn your lines, meaning what triggers that line. Did you hear someone say something? Hey, where are you going? And my character says, I'm going to work. Get ready to go to work and then hear that line and then answer. So now I'm finding my lines based on what I'm doing. You know what I'm saying?
mm,
Because like Stella used to say, I know we've talked about this in the past, the actor, the character doesn't know the lines the actor does, but the character knows what they're meant to be doing. Where if you separate them and you learn your lines, and then you start doing an activity, you lose the lines. And you see people, they're about to lose the lines. Just yesterday, someone did a monologue in class, and I said to the class, he's going to forget his lines, I guarantee you. And literally 2 seconds later, he forgot his lines, all right?
mm.
Because you can tell he was doing the lines. You know what I'm saying? So, and some people say you need time for that. And I go, no, you don't, because you're going to sit there memorizing lines anyway. So you can memorize them as you're doing. What's the character doing? Have the lines in front of you, do the activity, there's the line, and then find out what feeds that line.
Mm.
So also what happens is with that, they don't just see this, and then you're sitting there waiting. They actually see the activity to some degree. It doesn't matter if you're doing a Zoom audition, I can still do something. You know what I'm saying? Right?
Yeah, in improv, they say always, make a cup of tea. If you're not doing anything else, make a cup of tea. If you're talking about something,
Exactly.
make a cup of tea so that you're physically doing something
Well,
rather than
something,
just
correct.
this.
And yes, it does help to dress accordingly and all that stuff. You know what I'm saying? And then what happens is you're also looking, if you got a whole scene, I also tell people don't bulldoze the lines, literally cherry pick them. Meaning that moment, I could make a stronger choice because it works and it makes sense. You got me? I always ask people, why'd you open your mouth? What triggered you opening your mouth? And if I don't see that trigger, I know that that actor's doing lines. You know what I'm saying? Now, keep in mind, especially today, they have a lot of auditions based on Zoom or video. You know what I'm saying? So if I turned all the volumes off from all the auditions, most of them look the same because the actor's just doing the lines. And if I see this one audition that the person's doing something, and then you see them listening and you see them reacting to whatever was said, and then comes the line, that's someone that you go, they got my attention. You know what I'm saying? And that's a skill, putting the lines in last. That doesn't just happen. You know what I'm saying? And it takes a little bit more time, but not a lot of time, right? By the way, here's another thing you have to have ready: a place to film, equipment to film, you know, the camera, the lights, all that stuff. These things in today's world have to be ready so that when you do get the audition, you're not going, hey, where shall I go? And the cat and the dog are running around. And, you know, I've seen some hysterical auditions. One guy, he was in Perth and his mom ran behind him half naked in the shower. That was a real audition. The other one, his mom and dad got into a fight in the house. Brilliant. So you got to have these things ready. You got to have a place. You got to be able to tell the people to be quiet. You got to have your lights ready, your camera ready, digital, all that stuff. The functionality of the digital world has to be present, you know.
And if you're starting out and you don't have that stuff, there are places around that will do it for you. So you can go in and do your self-tape with someone who will shoot it, who will read, and then they'll edit and upload it as well. So there are, so you got to pay dollars.
Yeah.
But if you don't have that and you're starting out, then there's people that can help you.
Yes. You know what I'm saying? And we can, that's just part of being ready. That's another thing on the list. All the digital stuff, you know, ready to go.
Yeah, so we got to get your environment ready. Environment ready. You got to have your admin ready, and you got to have your craft ready. So maybe those are the three things that we can suggest that if you are wanting to be ready, those are the things that you need to get ready. Is there anything else that we want to discuss?
Yes. One more category since we are here. Have all your financials ready. We spoke about that when Yoli did the thing with taxes. You know what I'm saying? Have, like, if you're a company as an actor or you're incorporated, have all your accounts ready so people know where to do all that stuff. You know what I'm saying? Your invoices ready. If you go for an audition, all that stuff has to be packaged. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot,
especially in Australia, you need to have an ABN, and you also need to have an invoice ready.
Yes. You know what I'm saying?
Otherwise, you don't get paid.
Just ready to go. Everything, all that stuff across the board has to be ready, you know, right?
How many actors do you think of this sort of stuff when they come to it, when they first come to the lab, Pete?
They don't think about it when they come to the lab. They think about it when they get an audition.
Yeah, okay.
And it always sounds like this. Hi, Peter. Sorry I haven't seen you forever. Got a really, and it ends up like this, really, really big audition. This is massive. And I say, well, if it's massive, why the hell weren't you ready? Do you know what I'm saying? And they go, I know, but it's really massive, all right? And then they go, I'll pay you as much money as you want. And by the way, I'll come back to class. And I go, forget everything else, right? This should have been ready. So when it is massive, you're already massive also. You know what I'm saying? You're already there. It's not way above you. And by the way, it sucks when you realize you're not ready. That's at the end of the day, that's what it comes down to. It's you being very honest to yourself and going, I let myself down. That's got nothing to do with the industry, nothing to do with what they're filming or not filming, nothing to do with the budget of the film industry. That's your own discipline with your own work. That's what it comes down to at the end of the day, you know?
Yeah, let that sink in, people. Let that sink in. If you're not ready, you've got an opportunity, then that's gonna hurt.
And you're talking to someone that's blown it a lot of times.
He's talking about auditions, people. Okay.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Not the casting couch.
No, that's another. But no, but I've had so many opportunities that looking back, I go, I fucked that one up. And I did many times. Looking back, I thought, man, I wish I was ready. So
Yep.
That's that.
Well, let's start wrapping it up. Pete, you've already plugged Kazakhstan quite a bit. Is there anything else that you want to plug?
Dennis, what are you doing?
Yeah, well, if you're in Sydney next September school holidays, come to bring the kids to Alice in Wonderland. It's at beautiful Sydney Botanical Gardens right by the harbour, 23rd of September to 9th of October.
It's going to be great. I remember seeing Alice in Wonderland. Wow, that show's been running for a while. I guess they sort of flip and flop and change the show, but I remember seeing that in Melbourne something like 10 years ago, and it was great then, and I'm sure that it's going to be even better now that you're in it, Dennis.
Was Dennis in it back then?
I don't think Dennis was in it back then.
If it was Australian Shakespeare Company, I would have been.
Oh, really? There you go.
Yeah, I've been doing it for about 10 years.
Oh, there you go. Perfect. Yeah, there you go. So, yeah.
He played a tree back then. He was in the background.
Well, my kids are going to be doing their first theatre show in Geelong.
Nice.
Only family and friends are able to attend. Most of the shows are sold out. They're going to be doing Annie Jr. and also Lion King Jr. as well.
Don't be an acting dad.
No, I'm just gonna be in the background and just watch. But yeah, my oldest daughter is she's got one of the lead roles in Annie, and my other daughter she is going to be a narrator. So I am very much looking forward to that. Yeah, I'm going to be chuffed really just to see
Very
them
nice.
up on stage. Gentlemen, another good podcast. We will reconvene in a week or so. We'll publish this on YouTube and also Facebook and anywhere you find a podcast. Gentlemen, it's always good to see you, and I wish you all good luck, and I am obviously going to see you again very shortly.
Thank you for joining us, everyone. Thank you, Luke. Thank you, Dennis. Take care, guys.
See you.
All the best.
Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.